we always say, what makes you different? And it seems like an innocent question, but it's secretly it's like a hardball question because they're almost always wrong. And unless they've really thought about it and workshopped it themselves, but because they always say the same three things: our people, our technology, and our processes. Right? That's what they always say. That's what makes them different. That basically means that if it's their people, then their people are just that much smarter than their competitors, and their competitors are a bunch of idiots, which can't be true. Their technology, having great technology, is just the order of business, because if the other competitors' technology didn't work, they wouldn't be in business. Right. And they must have some sort of processes. Right.
Yeah.
And so the differentiating on those three things is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Above the Clouds Stories from the Boardroom podcast. Today, we have a very special episode of Above the Clouds, and I always say that. But this time it really is, because we're flipping the script. Usually I'm the guy asking all the questions, and today I'm going to have the fastballs fired at me. And they're going to be fired by Cindi Boudreaux, our head of business development for BlueByrd, and Shannon Carlson, who is our managing partner and chief operating officer. So welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I've seen you record it before, but I've never been on it, so I'm honored.
All right. Well, be nice to me with these questions.
Absolutely.
No gotchas, no fastballs. I don't need that in my life.
All right.
I never agreed to go easy on you, so.
Well, you never do. And,
True.
And that's why we're letting you out of your cage. Usually
Finally.
Shannon's in the salt mines because somebody's got to do all the work while I'm out doing podcasts and lollygagging.
Shaking babies and kissing hands, like you always say.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
That's my...
Someone's got to do all the work around here. So.
That's right. 100%. And so I don't know what's happening. The office might be on fire right now without you there, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. Let's hope not.
Maybe you'll be there when we get back from this.
It's okay. As long as the books aren't in the building, we'll be good.
All right. Well, the reason why we're here is because I wrote a book. It's called The Best Kept Secret: What Technical Companies Keep Getting Wrong About Growth. So you guys feel free to ask away, and let's talk about the book.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations. It's no easy feat to write a book, and I'm very proud of you as your business partner. I'm very proud of you. I was excited when you told me you were starting to write one. I know that you have so much wisdom from over the years. So why don't we just start by you telling us kind of what inspired you to write this book? How long did it take? Kind of give us the backstory on your book.
Yeah, sure. Well, it turns out it took me about 30 years to write this book. Turns out I'm not a very good writer, and I'm a slow learner. So it took me a while to get it all out there. But seriously though, I did start it about a year ago, and it did take a long time. And I'm truly not a good writer, because as I kept writing it, I was like, I don't like this. I would write a few chapters and be like, this is not really what I was trying to do. And so I kept rewriting it and all that. But it was really it was a Saturday project for me for about a year, where I would come in, get up. I'm an early bird in our house, and no one else in my house is. So I'd get up early and right before everybody woke up, and I wrote in the acknowledgments that, I had to apologize to my family, because I was also writing it as I was talking to them and not really paying attention to what they said, 'cause I'm working something out up here. And so, but yeah, it took about a year to write. And really what I wanted to achieve was and this, Shannon, we see a lot of the same issues happen over and over, and it's across industry, it's across company size, and we see the same things happening over and over. And there's a lot of B2C marketing books out there, but there's not a lot of B2B marketing books. And so kind of took best practices, what we've learned over the years, and you get kicked in the face by the same boot, you tend to learn some things. And so I thought, let's document this and put it in book format.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Was there kind of one defining moment, or something that happened with a client that said, now is the time, I want to write this book?
I think, not anything particular with a client per se, but I was an empty nester, And so I thought, you know what, now's the right time to do it. And also, I think people, I've thought about writing a book for a long time, and then, it just kind of sits in your head and until finally just one day you go, you know what, all right, I'm just going to start it. And I think that's the hardest part with any project like that, is actually getting started. Because as you know, we have busy lives and it's always busy at work. So we always have plenty to do. It's a target-rich environment for work. And so, throwing something new on, like writing a book, was something that I was like, well, I'll do it next year. But I'm glad I finally did it. It felt really good to do it. But I think anybody out there who's thinking about writing a book, I will warn you, once you write the book, that there's still two big chunks of things that you need to do in order to be finished writing the book. Because you got to figure out how to get it published, and then you got to promote the book. So it's like 3 jobs after you finished writing the book. And maybe you shouldn't start the promotion before you're finished writing the book.
That's great advice. And I'm really excited to see what technical leaders take from this, because we know that oftentimes technical leaders, may not read marketing blogs or go to marketing conferences, but a lot of them do read business books. And so I think this is, great to kind of get the word out on your idea around commercialization and how a lot of companies fail commercially for reasons that we believe can be fixed, right? So I think this book is something that we wish we could hand to everybody and say, hey, here is the best kept secret.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because I think that is something that I wanted the book link to be short enough, because all our clients are super busy. I think everybody's busy these days, but our clients are super busy. So I wanted it to be something they could read on an airplane or over a weekend, and just get all the blueprint for how to get themselves, ready commercially. Because as you mentioned, it's fixable. It's a fixable problem, but you just have to recognize that there are issues and there's challenges ahead of you. And so that's what this book's hopefully going to help technical leaders do.
Yeah. No, and one thing that you said, that you wanted a book focused on B2B, right? Which throughout my career, I've been mostly on the B2B side in marketing and sales, and have looked for books that are B2B marketing and sales focused, or B2B sales focused, and it's difficult to find, right? It's either B2C marketing or it's B2B SaaS kind of sales that comes out. And what I've found in the field when I've been fortunate enough to get an advanced copy and to help you kind of get the book out to some potential clients, and what I'm finding is that it's not marketing and salespeople that are the most drawn to it. Who did you actually write the book for?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I think really I wrote it for technical leaders of all sorts. So a lot of times CEOs are the ones that ultimately feel the pressure of when their growth plateaus. Because CEOs are ultimately responsible for everything. And I think they've engineered really awesome products a lot of times, and have built a good team, and they're building a good culture. And then they hit this growth slump, and they think, maybe we could sell our way out of it. Let's hire some salespeople. And then things maybe don't go, as the trajectory doesn't go up like they thought it was going to do. And this book is really for them. But in addition, it's also meant for the commercial leaders in the organizations, because those are the ones the CEOs look at and go, hey guys, where's the numbers? Like, what about that deal you said was going to close? Where are the leads? What's happening? Why aren't we seeing the growth that we want? And so they kind of get pushed to find the answers for these things pretty heavily. So those are the main people we really want to target.
That's exactly who I'm finding. Is it's not marketing people, it's the CEOs, it's the founders, it's the commercial inside those technical organizations. And they've kind of found that things aren't clicking right commercially, and the revenue engine isn't working. And so they are not able to diagnose what's going on. They can't figure out, it's like everything is relationship driven and we're not growing. How do we go in and find more clients? And the answer isn't always just throw more salespeople at it or throw different marketing tactics at it. So,
yeah. And I think it's interesting. What you're referring to is the title of this book, The Best Kept Secret.
Yep.
So I think probably everyone would be curious to know, what is the best kept secret
Yeah, well, that's a good question because the book doesn't have a best kept secret. So really, that title is
Spoiler alert.
yeah, that's right. You can still buy it though. No, the what the best kept secret refers to is a derogatory term, really, that we in marketing like to talk about with companies because people have built something really great. Sometimes they go, "Wow, it'll sell itself." This is something that is so good, and our offerings are so awesome. We have the best people, we have the best technology. This is just we're gonna make a gazillion dollars and go to market. But then they forget to tell the market about it,
Mhm.
and so then they have what we call the best kept secret. They are the best kept secret. These companies that can't grow because they haven't told people about their offering and about their company and what they're about. And there's two things that you definitely can take away from if you take that approach, that no one's going to know who you are, and people don't buy things from people they don't know, and they don't know what drives them, why they're doing what they're doing, why it's going to be valuable to them. If you don't communicate those things, people won't buy what you're selling.
That's very true. And I think I'll just add that the best kept secret is that most of your competitors are making the same fixable mistakes. And the company that closes the commercial gap first is the one that doesn't just grow, but actually dominates the market. So
Yeah.
who is going to tell that secret first?
And I think that you bring up something really great there, Shannon, is that there's higher stakes than just growing. Because as you know today, if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you let somebody else jump out there and steal your thunder, that's gonna, it could put your company at jeopardy. And we've seen it happen a ton throughout the years when we're working with people and they go, these guys are out there eating our lunch and, we can't understand it. Their technology's not any good. I don't understand why they keep selling. And it's like, well, because they get out there and they talk to customers and they're
Right.
talking to your customers every day.
Well,
Right.
and I think also they're talking to customers, but they have the right message,
Mm.
right? They aren't, we see a lot of companies that are technical and they've built really sophisticated projects, but the growth engine hasn't evolved quite the same way, and they're dependent on, again, founder relationships and institutional knowledge and, kind of random acts of selling or doing that sales motion. And this book gives the technical leaders the framework to apply the same type of rigor that they've been applying to their engineering and their product development the whole time. And it's really resonating.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I've had clients over the years say, well, we can't talk about that because that's the secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
Well, the more that you hold that secret sauce in, you're losing market share.
100%.
So,
And a lot of times their secret sauce is, just mustard, mayonnaise, and ketchup mixed together. And everybody knows it.
which is a great combo, I'll say.
Tastes great.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I've been, as I said, doing some of the lead with the book. If I were to tell one of our potential clients or someone that I'm giving the book in one sentence what the book's about.
Well, I would probably say it's about why brilliant technology doesn't sell itself,
Mhm.
and what to do to fix it, and more importantly. And also, I guess I would say, to further explain that, I'm a oversimplifier. That's probably maybe an oversimplistic answer. But yeah, exactly. But I also would say it's a playbook for technical leaders who feel like they're made something great, but they're leaving money on the table. And it's because they haven't built their commercial engine to match the rigor with which they built their engineering engine.
The phrase that always gets the best reaction and the most heads nodding with me is we help technical teams sell, easy for me to say one more time. We help technical teams sell complex products and solutions to complicated organizations. And, that's exactly where a lot of these technical companies get stuck, right? The buying market has changed and their technology is strong, but they can't compete in the buying market. They have these large buying committees. They have multiple stakeholders. They're trying to get the messaging right for people that are definitely not engineers. and that understand the product as well. So,
Well, it's most challenging market right now. Not just because of the short-term pain we're in, but just a lot of the long-term things that have made it very difficult to sell in today's environment. And I think the people who are figuring it out are going to be the real winners in the market. And
Definitely.
the ones who continue to do things the old way they're gonna really fall farther and farther behind.
Yeah, and I really love that about the book is you walk through these sins that companies make and the deadly sins and things like that. And so you kind of get into that meat of what each of those things are. And I love how Cindy's talking about the messaging. There's a whole section on differentiation and why it's important and all of that. And so, but let's get into the ideas because I think the first big concept is the innovation blind spot. And so what is it? And why is it so costly for technical companies?
Sure. Well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's this dangerous assumption that if we make the best mousetrap that people are going to just line up and buy it. And, if you guys remember the movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they would come. Well, it's only true in baseball movies. It doesn't happen like that in the real world. And it's a very interesting trap to fall in. And you can understand it. A lot of our clients, when I say they're technical leaders, most of our clients we work with are either engineers, doctors, people that have come from a STEM background and somehow have reluctantly become in the marketing and sales role or CEO role, and now they're responsible for this commercial growth. And I think that one of the things that about those types of people is that they are very logical and they are very smart and they're quick on the uptake. But the thing about the curse of knowledge that makes it so fascinating, and this is a known psychological deficiency that all people, a psychological trap that all humans suffer from, is that once you know something, it's very hard to realize what it was like before you knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So your world's changed, and you've been talking about in your organization. You talked about to a small group of customers. You've been explaining it over and over and over, and so now you are like, duh, doesn't everybody know this? Of course, like. Why doesn't everybody know this? Why do I have to keep explaining this over and over again? Well, because a lot of the people you're explaining it to didn't hear you first 100 times you said it, and the people you did explain it to 100 times maybe still need to hear it a different way. Yeah. But it's a really interesting phenomenon because what happens is that causes those type of people to explain like 3 levels too deep, right. On the first go around, and then they have to kind of back their way out. And they just, the customer walks away going, I don't get it. And the person's going, that presented is going, they just don't get it. I don't understand why they don't get it. They seem smart. But then, confused mind, I say this in the book, confused mind never buys. Yeah. And so they walk away confused going, I don't know, it sounds a bit like a science project. Maybe it's not something we have time to get involved in. No thanks. And the whole thing just gets very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I've walked into companies where the engineering team couldn't even explain what the product did in plain language, and they've been selling it for 5 years. Yeah. And the same, people down the hall can't because it's just not in the language that they understand, right? And so it's just genuine blindness. And so I think the hardest part about being a marketing leader in those instances is trying to convince the technical team that simplifying the message isn't dumbing it down. It's just making it so that your audience can understand it. And when you have different buying groups who speak different languages, right? If you're talking to procurement, it's about money. Or, and if you're talking to another engineer, then it's more about the technical matters. And so, right? So, and sometimes there's just and also the different levels matter too, right? Are they managers? Are they directors? Are they executives versus are they analysts? And so, trying to explain that, it's not that they're wrong in their messaging. It's just not the right messaging for that audience, right?
Yeah,
100%.
no. I see that all the time. The technical founders are really good at explaining the architecture, the engineering, the innovation behind the product, but the buying committee is looking at something
Right.
completely different. It's like the financial justification, business risk, operational impact, those kinds of things. And that disconnect is where a lot of companies just get stuck, right?
One of the things that what I was exposed to earlier in my career about the curse of knowledge is this book that was written in the 1800, or no, not 1800, like 1918, something like that. It's by a guy named Robert Updegraff, and the book is called Obvious Atoms, and it's about this guy who was not the smartest tool in the shed and everything. He's just a curious guy, and he didn't know what he was going to do after college, and he wound up going to, just help people solve business problems. And I guess before consulting was a really big deal, but he would go in to places and he would start asking questions, and they would start, telling them all the problems that they have in the company. And so he would ask more questions. And then all of a sudden he would just, he would come to the conclusion that, it's this, and people would argue with him and say, well, that can't be the thing that's going to solve our needs if we just tell people that. And he's like, well, yeah, sure it will be. And so the whole book is about the curse of knowledge, and I think it's it really opened my eyes, because at the time I read that book, I was working for a big oil and gas services company, and I was trying to understand everything these guys sold, and it was just, there's so many smart people there, just PhDs out the yin yang, and just all these big shots. And they were so smart, and I didn't know anything about their world, and I was trying to learn fast and drink from the fire hydrant, and I thought, oh, I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, and that will never happen at this company. So how do I ask the right questions to go in and understand things, and then point out that just because they're PhDs on this subject matter doesn't mean that all the people that they're going to be selling this to are equally as smart as them.
Right.
And that is the big assumption. And I had one engineer tell me that, and he said, look, I know, because I said, explain it to me like I'm a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not going to ever sell this to a 10-year-old, so I don't need to be able to explain that. And I said, have you met many procurement people?
Yeah.
Because they might not, they don't know any of these things you're talking about. And by the way, the CEO of the company's not going to know this stuff like you're talking about.
I'd like it to be explained to me like I'm a 10-year-old so I can understand it.
Yeah,
I'm not near as smart as those technical people.
It's funny, after I read in the book about the curse of knowledge, because I'm out doing a lot of the networking and talking to these technical people, and sometimes I am like, oh, I don't understand anything you're talking about, but I know it's really cool, right? And I think when you can make that flip and understand what it is delivering and what exactly it is the benefit of it, and it's helpful. You talked a little bit before, I think you've talked a little bit about the statement that I get from a lot of technical founders, which is, oh, we don't need marketing. We don't need any help with sales. The product sells itself. It's so amazing, it just sells itself. And I hear that a lot after someone has explained this technical thing that I'm still trying to figure out. So what do you say when someone tells you this product will sell itself? Like, what's the response to that?
Say, let me see your pipeline. Let's look at it. Because I haven't seen too many products that really do sell themselves. Yeah. Now, there's this, product market fit is a real thing, and you have to have a good product. But today, a great product is kind of table stakes.
Yeah.
There's not too many companies out there that just make terrible products and services that are stay in business for very long. So if you're competing against somebody, they probably got a pretty good product, right? Yeah. Their technology is not garbage. Their employees are not all idiots, I promise you. So, how are you gonna differentiate from them? And I think, to say how are we gonna to kind of circle back to your question about how I would look at that, I really would want to look at their pipeline and see where things go wrong, where the deals stall, all those kinds of things. But I will bet you if somebody says the product really sells itself, they probably don't have a CRM and they probably don't have an active pipeline they're really monitoring. And also, I think that there's different stages in a company's life.
Sure.
And so at the beginning, because that's the other thing we hear too is that, Richard, you don't understand. It's a relationship business here. Like
Oh,
we
that's a
got
big one. We hear
It's
that every
huge.
day.
all the time, right? It's a relationship. Like we don't need
Right.
marketing. It's all about relationships. And you go, well, what business isn't a relationship business?
Right.
Honestly, every business is a relationship. I'm a
Mhm.
founder. I'm a founder seller. And sure, my phone rings because I'm old and I know a lot of people, but that's not going to scale the company.
Yeah.
We got to sell to strangers. We got to get out there and talk to strangers and sell things to them. And if we're going to grow the company to hit our growth ambitions,
Mhm.
and I think it's the case with everybody. If you're happy and you just want to run a lifestyle business that just kind of floats along, sure, just let the product continue to sell itself. And you as a founder seller can go out there and
Yeah.
make a good living and build a nice little business. But if you're really ready to scale, you're going to have to quit being the best kept secret.
That's a
Yeah.
great response for technical founders that know their products so well that they think it's just obvious everyone else should get it. Let's see your pipeline.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, and I think products that sell themselves is usually more on the B2C side
Mhm.
versus B2B. Like
Mhm.
B2C, you can really infer what something is for, right? I see a turtle box speaker. I'm like, yes, I
Sure.
need a speaker. I'm trying to project music, whatever, right? That looks awesome. And all those people look like me who are using it in this ad. But it's not that clear on the B2B side, right?
Yeah,
There's
100%.
details that go into it. Is this going to fit into my specific, pump that I need? Or is this going to fit, right? So you need more details. You need, the specs. You need case studies. There's just supporting evidence that you need for sales like that,
Mhm.
especially they're a lot more expensive, right?
Yeah.
You pay $250 for a speaker. That's one time. Most of the B2B sales that we work with can be in the millions,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So it takes a lot more when it's a lot more expensive.
Yeah, a lot more touch points, a lot more people to convince. Like your example of B2C is true, right? I'll watch a baseball game and I'll see a fast food advertisement for a new hamburger and I'll think, oh, I'll try that. That looks pretty good. But the buying center is one.
Right.
I don't have to convince anybody else to
Maybe
try
your
that.
wife.
No, she won't. She was not going to eat a fast food hamburger. Are you kidding me? So I'll have to go on my own on a lunch break. But yeah, I think that's the thing, right? But then all of a sudden in a B2B thing that you talked about, you're convincing multiple stakeholders. I don't know about you, like I can't, if you have 6 to 8 stakeholders that are involved, which is
Mhm.
average on a B2B sale nowadays, I can't convince 6, 8 people where to eat lunch.
Right.
I don't know. And so, the complexity goes up infinitely.
Yeah.
With those new buying patterns, and
Mhm.
you mix in a long sales cycle on top
Exactly.
of that, and you really, it's challenging.
Yeah.
And so very difficult for a product to sell itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears a little bit from the product to the actual people who sell them. So you talk in the book about kind of the difference between two different salespeople and the behaviors that they have in the sales organization. And we talk about that a lot internally, right?
Yeah.
There are different behaviors that make a successful salesperson and someone who isn't as successful, right? So can you paint that picture for us and kind of reference the material in the book a little bit
Yeah,
for
sure.
our guests?
So I reference Tom and Maria in the book, and Tom is an old school, smiling, dialing guy and calling people saying, hey, let me sell you my software. And Maria is somebody who is backed by account-based marketing, and she knows what accounts that they're going after, and she knows about those companies. She knows what their pain points are. She's been looking for a window of opportunity, and something to happen in the news for them. Those companies have already been engaging with their content, and so she can just pick up the phone. And when she picks up the phone, she's not saying, "Hi, Maria, I'm here to sell software." She's saying, hey, I noticed that one of your colleagues downloaded our white paper, knowing that you have this big merger and acquisition coming up. Is now a good time where we can spend 30 minutes on a quick call just to see if we might be able to help you guys out?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very different conversation than, do you want to buy something from me?
Right.
Our friend Ken Proctor always has this term called commission breath. Right?
Yeah.
And
You can smell it from a mile away.
Right. Tom is ridden with commission breath.
Absolutely.
And and so I think that's a big that's a big difference, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to highlight in the book.
The buying process has gotten so much more complex in the last decade. How have you seen it change personally?
Whoa. So it really has changed a lot. And I think that there's a couple of things that I see that have changed and are continuing to change and get worse, not better. And one is the amount of buyers that are involved in the average B2B deal. 6 to 8 was the last number I saw, but I think it's probably going to be higher than that the next time, because every year it gets a little higher. And so that's a big challenge. Another thing too is that, and I think it's a complication of the first problem, is that the sales cycles are getting longer. And so I think that's because there are more people involved, so it takes longer to convince everyone to say yes, or at least convince some people not to say no. That's just sometimes the best you can do.
Yeah.
And so those two things are really complicating B2B sales. And the other thing that's gotten a lot more complicated is the technology. It's gotten, technology is one of those things that can be great. It can really help your life, but also can really make your life miserable. And you see a lot of salespeople and sales leaders who have their nose in Salesforce all day long instead of getting out there and talking to customers.
Right.
And that's a real problem, and because they're having to do all this admin stuff behind the computer. And so it's one of those things that, when we work with our clients, we really try to simplify the technology piece of that so they can focus on what really matters.
Yeah, I definitely deal with that firsthand. Better than anybody else that one of the clients we have, one of the goals of that sales leader was, I want you to reduce the amount of time that my team has to spend in HubSpot, right? I want them out there selling. So I think the more that we can simplify that for them, or provide the workflows for them, or automate as much as possible is critical.
Yeah. Oh,
So.
100%. You take all those complexities in it, and it really slows everything down.
Yeah. So I'm throwing down the gauntlet.
Ooh, dangerous.
Watch out. No, so you describe the B2B buying process as a gauntlet, and that's a really strong word, right? What's actually happening out there?
Well, it is, it's a little strong word, because I've seen it kill so many deals. And, it really is a gauntlet. Like I said before, if you try to get me to convince, 8 to 10 people to all agree on where we're going to have lunch, it's going to be a challenge. And what we find is a lot of times, not only do those 8 to 10 people in the buying cycle have, the big part is not only it's trying to convince not only you have to convince 6 to 8 people to do something, but you have to, a lot of times they have competing goals and interests. And so what's going to make one person really look like a star in an organization might make somebody else look stupid.
Yeah.
Or somebody's going to feel threatened by it. Or somebody's going to say, well, look, why are you even talking about that? That's my job. And so they're going to automatically say no in these big organizations. And so that can be a very challenging space to be in. One little case study that we had with this, we were working with a client that they sold ocean bottom nodes for seismic.
I remember this one.
Remember this? And they had a really, they thought they knew their whole buying center. And they knew they were talking to the reservoir engineers and the asset managers and the production guys. They knew all the people, and they even knew procurement was going to get their nose involved in it. But what they didn't, and so we built their messaging, and it was all ready to go. And the sales team brought it out to the market, and they thought they had a deal. It was high fives all around. And then the next thing you know, the deal dies. And so we're going, what happened? What happened? Yeah. Well, the sales leader who was in that area, they were in the North Sea in Scotland. He said, I don't know, I'm going to get our champion out for coffee and see if I can understand what happened. And he came in, and the guy said, look, I'll be honest with you, everyone really liked your solution. It's the best technical solution out there. We think you guys are the right people to do it. The only problem is our safety guy thought that he questioned your safety record. And so you go, wow, that's really, that's the thing that killed it. And so he came back, and so we're in the boardroom talking about this. And one of the guys said, well, does he know that, we're the only people who can work around, and they mentioned a customer's name. That's the big high-end customer in that area. We're the only people that can work around their rigs at night. And they go, no, we didn't know that. And a lot of people in the room didn't even know that that was the case. And he said, well, we do. And I can get a testimonial from their safety person. So we did. So we put together a little white paper and a little flyer, and then we armed our salesperson to go hand that to the champion. He handed it to the safety person. And that was the one little thing that unlocked this whole deal. And this was a very big deal. This was not, this was tens of millions of dollars. And I think it's a sticky customer that they're still working with today. But all that just goes to show you, somebody might creep into that committee that you didn't even consider.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, your deal's done.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the root cause of that? Why do you think companies get that so wrong?
Curse of knowledge is a big part of it, right? They think, hey, well, of course we know. Like that person in the room is a good example. It's like, yeah, we're the only people who can work offshore around these rigs at night. Of course, everyone knows that our safety record's great. Well, they didn't put that on the website. They didn't put that in their RFP. They didn't put that in any of their documentation. And so why would someone think that that's the case?
Right.
It's all locked up.
The curse of knowledge and the curse of assumption.
Yes.
Both. Yeah. The gauntlet that is something that I've learned from it because I've experienced it. I've been, BD for long enough that, I've had many a deal where our champion was sold and I was talking to just the champion and they had the authority. They wanted to move fast. And then all of a sudden 7 more people get involved and the timeline doubles and you're like, oh, what do I do now? And, so now I ask early, who else is possibly going to be involved for you to decide that this is right for you? Who's going to touch this? And I think the earlier you can get that answer and start working towards that or solving towards that, the better.
That's right. It's a really smart move, Cindi, because you definitely want to get those people involved early as possible and, understand what their concerns are and what's motivating them and what does a good deal look like to those people and get them in that conversation if you can because that's a lot of weight to put on your champion in the organization because a lot of times they haven't been classically trained salespeople, but now you're asking them to carry the sell throughout the organization. So as long as getting in front of those people as you as a professional salesperson and BD person is going to work out a lot better than hopefully than some person in that organization who's putting their reputation at stake in the organization. It's really they've got a lot riding on it, and they're not going to go to bat as hard as you would.
Well, and catching it up front and early instead of 3 months in and being able to arm your champion with, oh, okay, these 7 people are involved. Here's what this one's going to focus on. And here is something that might be helpful. And you can work with marketing to get the right messaging in. And especially if they're looking to get something done quickly, help them speed up the timeline and arm them with what it takes to get the deal done. So
you've never seen that happen in an organization where a deal goes 7 months in and then all of a sudden it goes pear-shaped, have you?
No, never. And I mean, it's just, it's wild to think that sales cycles are actually that long, right? I mean, I've got a client who it took them 36 months to close it, but they held on, right? And it's, it was, now's not the right timing. So we follow up in 6 months, go back. Okay, what changed in the business at that point? Okay, what information do we need to give them now? They're in a completely different position, right? Or the sponsor changes and that really derails everything. So how do you kind of arm them with those materials like you were talking about?
And so if the reality now is 6 to 8, probably increasing, right? As we said, and we have these longer timelines. What does a company actually need to do differently to keep deals from stalling?
Well, one of the things that we like to use, or what I refer to it in the book as the armory.
Hmm.
And so it's a place where you can keep all your sales materials in one place, so the salespeople can then go and arm their internal stakeholders with these things. So it's like the story I told about it. They just needed our track record of safety, so we put together a safety document for that salesperson to go through. And Cindi, you know this from starting with us.
Yeah.
You know, when we first started, everything was in my head, and a founder seller is the worst person to come in after because I just, you know, I knew where all the stuff was and was not essentially located place. You spent half your time looking for slide decks and old proposals and all these things, right? But having those things in a nice, neat place where the salespeople can get them and see, like, oh, they're experiencing this problem. This is the right piece of content. This is the right piece of content for this person, and it takes some creativity and it takes some time to develop that. But now with AI, you can develop it a lot faster than we could 5 years ago or 2 years ago, or 18 months ago, right? And so I think that is something that is a real key to doing it. And I don't know, anybody who's ever been in sales and knows about this. You know, you got a long deal. It's been sitting in a pipeline. Your customer's kind of ghosting you. And so what do? You send the, hey, just check in an email, which is terrible. It's the worst thing you can do. We've all done it, though. We've all done that, and it sucks. And you feel
What's
so
another
useless.
way to word? Oh, just checking in.
Following up, putting this at the top of your inbox. No, don't do that. And so if you have a good armory of things you can send, it's like, by the way, we wanted to show you our latest case study where we help somebody just like you solve a problem just like the one you have, you know, and, you know, provide value at each one of those interactions instead of giving off commission breath and they see through it and they go, oh my gosh, Cindi just is here so she can hit her commission. She doesn't really care about helping me solve my problem.
Definitely helpful.
We actually, we automated that for a client actually in their sales cycle within the pipeline. So every time they moved it from stage to stage, it had an automated email with an object that was kind of aligned to whatever service at that point that they were selling. And our client's prospect actually said, because of the case study that was in that email, I hope you can do this for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful it was for them in that moment. And that really pushed the deal forward for them.
Absolutely. And that's what, you know, orchestrated sales marketing looks like.
I wanted to ask you about, we talk a lot about how only 5% of the market is actively buying at any given time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about, what does that mean for technical companies? How should they think about commercialization and pipeline development?
Well, and it's a big challenge. In addition to that, you know, that there's so many people involved in the buying committee once you do find them. But that is a really interesting point. People challenge me on that all the time.
They do.
They're like
I've heard them.
5%. Like, how do you know that? Well, and the answer is number is almost, and you know, it's 100% wrong. You know, it's not necessarily 5%, but it's a dynamic number that's going to change from day to day. But the analogy I like to use is if we walked into a theater and there were 100 people in that theater, and I got in front of that audience and I said, who here sleeps on a mattress? Probably every hand in the room would go up. Right. But then if I said, look, who in here is in the market to buy a new mattress today? Well, almost all the hands are going to go down, and there's going to be, let's say, 5 people in there that are going to go, I'm
in the market.
I'm in the market. My mattress is 10 years old. You know, my kid threw up in their bed and they need a new mattress. You know, all those different things. Our house flooded, whatever it is, and now you need a new mattress. And so, but if you go in that same room tomorrow, maybe 8 people raise their hand, maybe 2 people raise their hand. And so it always depends. It always is going to fluctuate day by day. But it's like that for almost everybody's customers. And when I give that to them, they go, oh yeah, that's right. That happens to us. So a lot of our clients, you know, they have long lasting relationships with their customers. But what that means is their competitors also have long-lasting relationships with the customers in that industry. And so, but there's always a moment when they go, you know what, I want a new provider for this service. And at that point, you know, that's when you need to be able to get right in there and talk to them. And the challenging thing behind that 95-5 principle is that the most companies, when they come to us, they're like, we want a high ROI, we want leads, we want at-bats for the salespeople. And that means they want you to focus on the 5%. And
Yep.
the problem with that is if you're selling to that 5%, you're selling too low in the organization, because who's looking for things when they know it's a known problem and they're out searching? Well, procurement. And procurement's goal is to get the best deal and make sure that they're comparing apples to apples and get a safe comparison in there and all that. And you haven't had a chance to tell your story very well, because now they're about 80% of the way through the buying cycle. And now they're just getting thrown in there, and they're probably comparing you against somebody who was talking to them before they decided they needed that. And they're just saying, is this person really is this company really the right company to go with? So now you're really playing from behind. Your salespeople are having to scramble to kind of justify it. You're probably going to get beat down on price, because now procurement has it, and they're saying, look, which one of these, they all seem good. Here's our top 3. Let's pick the cheapest one. Well, most of our clients are not the cheapest ones.
Right.
And so it's a real challenge, that 95-5 rule. But the answer to that is you've got to talk to all of the people.
Right.
Because you don't know. Remember when I said that, tomorrow you might go and 8 people raise their hand? Well, if you were talking to those people before yesterday, when you asked that question and talked about how great your mattress is and why you should consider over the bad guys, and you tell a compelling story, they're going to be the first person they think of, and they're going to come to you. And it works like that for literally everything. Is kind of like that. And so you want to get your name out there. You want to talk about it. You can't ignore the fact that brand awareness is super important at that phase, so people understand that you are somebody who sells in that category, and you're somebody that they should consider when they are making that purchasing decision.
This is one of the most important ideas in the book for CMO specifically, because it really reframes that brand versus demand debate entirely. A lot of times when I'm talking to different companies, let's just put it all into lead gen and none into brand awareness. But that brand awareness is speaking to that 95% that you were talking about. And when those guys are ready to buy, they're already going to know who we are, what problems we solve, how we can help with that. And they're going to go into it in that research phase, having the right questions to ask and being ready for that conversation. And that's really critical. And I can also tell you from experience today, just as an example, we've been running a manufacturing campaign for our client, targeting a new vertical for the last 4 months. And today alone, we got 2 leads in that vertical. But we've been talking to them for 4 months because we started out with brand awareness, we went into consideration, and then lead gen, right? So we had to talk to them for that time and really make them aware of the potential problems that they're having in those industries. But if somebody would have converted on week 1 or 2 of that campaign, I would have been shocked. Right? Because they weren't ready at the time, or they didn't know. They also didn't know who our client was either, because they're not usually promoting themselves to that industry. So, most people don't get married to somebody they just met that day.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And you nailed it. I think, just keeping that awareness level out there so people know, like, oh, this is a company that solves the kind of problems that I might have one day. I don't have that problem today, but now I know who they are. It's interesting. It's when, to reference a B2C example of that, it's like hospitals. I'm a big Astros baseball watcher, and, Methodist, advertise on there all the time. And I know if I ever hurt my knee, that Methodist has the right equipment and they can come help me out. But my knee's good today, knock on wood. And so I'm not worried about it. But they have to have their name out there so that you are, when that problem arises, they're the ones you think of.
No, I think it's kind of critical for the CMO, but I think also it's one of the biggest disconnects, not just in technical B2B, but just most of B2B sales, right? Yeah. Leadership wants pipeline now. And so all of the activity gets pushed to outbound sales. And the sales is out there. You have a long cycle, high consideration environment, and trust and market familiarity are already shaping the deal before the salesperson even gets to it, right? And so if the market doesn't already understand who you are, sales is trying to cram all of that knowledge into one 30-minute discovery call, right?
Yeah.
Just get everything out there right away, and it's difficult.
Sure.
So-
I call it the sales people go sell harder approach.
Yes,
It's a good strategy.
it's a good sell harder.
Sell harder, damn it. Close those deals. And
Another thing that you talk about is you identify, I think Shannon mentioned it before, but you talk about the 7 deadly sins of marketing, right?
oh, yeah.
And if you had to think about technical companies without going through all 7, we've talked about some of them, what would you think the most thing you see the most often or thing we see the most often is?
Well, so it's a challenging space because we see all of them. But I would say the one that where they all fall back to is failure to take a strategic view of their commercial engine. It's something that I think a lot of times people think about marketing and sales, and they don't think about it very strategically. It's like, what's so hard? Go sell it. Or it's marketing. Let's show up at a trade show, or my favorite, order some squeezy balls.
Yeah, give me a flyer.
I had one client tell me one time that the best marketing you can get is a camouflage baseball hat. I told him to get out of my workshop. I really did. And but I think it's the sin that all others fall from.
Sure.
And that leads to some of the other sins. Like one that's really fun to make fun is random acts of marketing.
Mhm.
And we see that all the time where we just had a client who she wants to generate leads, and she has a very limited budget, and she had some vanity advertising going on out there, and I suggested to her that maybe advertising in a free magazine that gets distributed to people's homes without them asking for it,
Mhm.
and the banner in the Little League baseball park, probably not good use of their marketing dollars to generate leads. If you want to, like, I bought, you remember this? We bought an ad for a baseball team, and we sponsored teams in the past, but we're not doing that because I want to generate leads. It's just because I want to help
Just
the kids
goodwill.
out. Yeah, just
Yeah.
goodwill, right?
Yeah.
That's not a marketing budget
No.
item, and and this client is really serious. Like that's what we need to do. And I thought, no, that's a total waste of your money.
And let me ask you this. How are they tracking return on investment for that? Since that's always the question that they ask us.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, they put a QR code in the ad,
Okay.
and that was in the free magazine. And I
Uh-huh.
can tell you, I have never, ever in my life pulled out my phone and taken a picture of a QR
No.
code in an ad.
No.
Have you guys ever done that?
No.
Not
No.
natural human
I've
behavior.
not. No.
No.
One other thing about random acts of marketing that I've noticed when they happen, they usually happen because a company hasn't taken the time to understand who their target market is and really narrowing in on that and who are we best positioned to serve, right? And without that clarity, every opportunity seems to start looking like the right opportunity. And I think what we see with prospects before we start working with them is we can sell to anyone. How is that dangerous? What's dangerous about that?
Let me count the ways that's dangerous. Actually, it's one of those things that somebody told me this earlier in my career, and I don't know where they heard it because I think it's been around for a while. But if you're trying to be everything to everybody, you're nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
And I believe that because you spread your message out so thin, and then you don't really look like a true expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you see it even in B2C brands. The markets have gotten so segmented that people have to see themselves working with you, and it has to feel like a good fit. And then also, it's hard to focus sometimes and to say like, hey, this is where we're going. This is who our target market is for this. And if people are outside of that, if they come to us, we'll take their money, but that's not who we're chasing. That's not where we're taking our valuable marketing dollars and time and effort to generate things for those people. We're only generating it for the people in the center of the bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really scary for people to do it because they think they're leaving money on the table, but really they're not.
Yeah.
They're focusing on it. And we see it with salespeople too, where it's like, yes, they have a pulse and they might have money.
Yeah.
This is our target audience, and you go, you really, they don't do a good job of qualification up front, and they spend a lot of time trying to talk somebody into buying something from them that they're never going to buy. They don't have the money to buy. They don't have they don't have budget authority, need, and timing. None of the things.
Nothing.
And and if you think about how much that costs your company, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's a hidden cost because you don't think about all the wasted time that salespeople spend talking to the wrong people. But if you took that salary and a fully loaded cost of those salaries, you would see that that's a big number.
Yeah.
One of my favorite chapters actually is about this. And so I've got a question for you. Is you describe the sea of sameness where every technical company's website looks and sounds identical. Why do smart companies keep falling into this trap specifically?
That is a great question, and I've asked myself that a million times. And basically, the way I think about it is, if you're going to really differentiate and you really mean it and you really live it out, it's scary. Because by choosing to be different, you are. It goes back to our chasing all the rabbits portion of the story, right? Where if you really focus and say, look, we're not going to sand any of the edges off. It's going to be a rough, sharp message, and it's really geared towards these people. And if these people outside that circle don't like it, that's okay. Well, people are very scared to do that, right. And some companies have these mysterious people roaming around called lawyers that don't want you to do that, and other people in highly regulated industries, and you can't say anything, so they use the same, boring stock photos of the people that all kind of look the same on everybody's website and say these crazy things that no real human would ever say at the top of their webpage. But that's what happens in that sea of sameness. And so the one exercise I recommend people do in the book is to print out your website and all your competitors' websites, or have somebody in your office do it, and then cover up the logos on there, print it on black and white printer so there's no brand colors, and mix them up, and then say which website did this come from? Is that ours? Could have been, right? We've done that in workshops before, and it's people don't know what's theirs. They don't know what their competitors, and it's really eye-opening experience. But when you're crafting that website, and then 10 people look at it and say, "Don't say that. Say it like this." And it's death by a thousand cuts for anybody who's ever produced a website or worked on a website. And then everything is so watered down and smoothly polished that, now all of a sudden everybody looks like everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, with AI, it's getting way worse. Because just by its default, AI tries to position things right down the middle. Yeah. That's what the algorithm, that's the way it works. And then everybody's right in the middle of the fairway. And you see it at trade shows, you see it on websites, and now with AI, generating the images with 6 fingers and things like that, you really see it on the websites too.
Yeah.
Visually.
Yeah, and I can think back to so many workshops that we've done over the years where, we're prepping for the workshop and we're trying to learn as much as we can about the company, and we read all the things on the website. We get into the one-day workshop, and everything they tell us is nothing that I read on the website, right? It's
100%.
Not there at all. And so, it's so interesting. The differentiation exists inside the company. It just never makes it to the customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And we always have to push back on the differentiation too, because a lot of times people are like, we always say, what makes you different? That's what we always say. And it seems like an innocent question, but it's secretly it's like a hardball question because they're almost always wrong. And unless they've really thought about it and workshopped it themselves, but because they always say the same 3 things: our people, our technology, and our processes, right? That's what they always say. That's what makes them different. And, that basically means that if it's their people, then their people are just that much smarter than their competitors, and their competitors are a bunch of idiots, which, can't be true. their technology, which we all just said, that, good technology is table stakes, and having great technology is just the order of business. Because if the other competitors' technology didn't work, they wouldn't be in business, right? And they must have some sort of processes, right?
Yeah.
And so, the differentiating on those three things is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure you see this a lot,
No,
Cindi.
it happens all the time. It's, and you're on websites a lot. I'm on websites a lot. I'm researching before I talk to a prospect. And most of the time, you're right. It's those three things that are differentiators. And I can't find anything else that differentiates. And if I'm on there trying to identify the value story and I can't quickly do it, a buyer's not going to spend more time than I spend on the website, right? And so the sea of sameness, I don't think it's just a marketing problem. It's a real commercial problem, because every conversation that you have has to start from scratch, really.
Yeah, that's right. Because what are you trying to do when you get into a sales call?
Yeah.
You do have those as headlines and main talking points.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we always terms that I always like to throw around is that if you're not competing on what makes you different, you're competing on price.
You definitely don't want to compete on price.
No, there's always somebody who'll do it cheaper.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting. I mean, just taking the time to understand who those buyers are and what they need to hear. I mean, I've got a client who, you wouldn't think this, their most visited page on the website, and the page that gets visited before a conversion most oftentimes is their team page, because the people who are researching them are so intrigued and want to make sure that these people are actually experts that they're going to be working with. So they look at multiple people, and that's always a clear buying signal for us. If they're really interested, they are looking at the Our Team page first. They're doing their research, and it was really important for us to actually have that on their website, because we knew that was something expertise, because their competitors actually like to place really young people. And so that was a big differentiator for them is their level of expertise, how long they've been in that field. They know where they just have a lot more experience than younger people. And so the competitor likes to put young people in there. It's cheaper for them. They just don't have the experience to be able to get the job done the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I think what you just described is so true of all professional services firms.
Yeah.
So whether you're a law firm, CPA firm, financial advisory, marketing, people come look at our pages. They want to know, like, does this person that's going to be working on our account have the expertise to do it? Because they've all been burned by big consulting firms who
bait and switch,
come in, and the experienced people sell it, and then they bring in their best 23-year-olds to deliver it, and they didn't get what they were hoping for, and they've been burned by it, and so now they want to know, like, who are these people? Who are the people I'm going to be working with on a day-to-day? Can they do the job? It's really important to make sure that you convey that if it really is your people.
Speaking of people on your teams, let's talk a little bit about the sales team and the marketing team, and kind of the misalignment between the two. And you have this as one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
How bad does it actually get? How bad have you seen it get?
I would say it's the single biggest operational drag on any business. It happens so often. And, I'll just tell a quick story. Whenever I was working for a large company, we had our marketing department, and we never ever talked to the salespeople, but every once in a while we had to go out to the field. And I went out, and I went into the office, and I went in the broom closet, and there was a big box of all the brochures and things that we've been handcrafting and making so beautiful and fighting over and getting into arguments over and around the office, and really going to the mat on everything. And then here they are sitting in the closet. And I said, do you guys ever use these things? They're like, nah, that's just something they sent from corporate. I'm like, I'm the guy who sent it from corporate. And so, and I was like, why don't you use it? And it's like, well, it's not really things we talk about with our kind of clients. And I thought, what a waste of time. And it's a big chunk of resources we wasted. We didn't stop to think about, what do the salespeople really need? And we didn't ask them, what do you really need? And what they really needed was stuff that we had produced, but they didn't know existed. And you go, wow, there's a much better way to do this. I also tell a funny story in the book about myself where we launched a product when I was working for a really big company, and we launched it at a trade show, and a salesperson came up to me and said, why how come I didn't know about this? I had a customer come talk to me about this, and I felt like an idiot. I didn't know anything about it. And, that was on us. That was on me. I didn't think, oh, yeah, we probably let the salespeople know. I thought that was somebody else's job. My job just to come up with the cool messaging and come up with all the stuff. And that was a real eye-opening experience that really changed the way I think about B2B sales and marketing coming together.
Yeah. I love that story. I've heard you tell it before, and I've been on the sales and marketing side, even in B2C, and it's always that marketing sends something out to the field that they haven't talked to salespeople about. It never works, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really one of the biggest disconnects that I see is the sales and marketing are operating from completely different assumptions about the market, right? So marketing is optimizing for engagement and lead volume, and sales is looking for deal quality and buying readiness and fit. And but the friction is never about effort, right?
Yeah.
It's always they're putting in the effort. It's just that the organization isn't aligned around what a qualified opportunity actually looks like, who the company is trying to reach, and how complex buying decisions actually happen.
Well, and that's a good litmus test that you just mentioned, because if I went into an office and talked to a CEO and he said our sales and marketing are completely aligned, and I said, okay, well, great. And I had the salesperson, the head of sales and the head of marketing in that room. And I said, what's your definition of a qualified lead?
Yeah.
What's a real sales opportunity? Go. And they can agree on it in less than 30 minutes. I will be shocked.
I thought you were going to say 30 seconds, but
they should be able to do it in 30 seconds. And they should both be in total agreement and alignment on it. But so many of the rooms we walk into, they're like, well, no, it's really this, and no, it's really that.
Mm-hmm.
But for this situation, it's that. But when we have the star salesperson go do it, they can sell anything to anybody. So it's this and those. It's not being pedantic. You really need to understand the taxonomy of what you're talking about and who's talking about. Because if you say marketing qualified lead or sales qualified lead in a room, and there's 5 people in that room, they all have 5 different understandings of what that is. It's when you run into a lot of friction down the road when people are reporting their scorecard. And that's when the CEO gets really mad because they're like, what happened to all these deals that were in the hopper?
Yeah.
You guys said you had all these leads. I don't see any revenue coming from it. What are you guys doing over there?
You tell a great story about that in the book also, and how we got a client a ton of leads and then what happened to them, right? And I think it's so critical that, as we get down the path with a customer, the salesperson actually comes back to us and says, hey, this wasn't a good fit because XYZ, so that we can work and adjust either messaging or materials or how we were talking to them. I think one of the biggest solutions, and I'll just plug BlueByrd for a minute because I can't help myself, is that we solve for misalignment. Between sales and marketing. If you don't have that functionality right, how can you sell?
Yeah.
And how can you track anything and prove the value and the ROI? I think that's just such an important part. And, we talk about that when we say, hey, do you have sales and marketing? Do you have culture? Do you have offerings, right? Like those 3 things. And when you're missing that,
you get a big gap and a lot of finger pointing, a lot of frustrated CEOs going, guys, where are the numbers?
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't want to hear you just throw this person under the bus, and I don't want to hear you throw that person under the bus. That's something that really we learned a lot during our fractional CMO days, because we got injected into all these organizations right off the bat, and that's what the CEOs wanted to do, and that was our first hurdle we ran into, and we thought, this has got to get fixed.
Yeah.
We have to fix this.
And but that was a really good point, Shannon. I think it's the loop. It's not just marketing needs to talk to sales. Sales needs to circle back. So you get that loop going. That's the constant feedback and communication.
Yeah, and if you don't fix that up front, which is what we try to help with in the beginning, then they're just going to keep doing their own thing, and you don't have that feedback loop. But if you create that culture of alignment and understanding of, this person is doing this person's doing that. Okay, we're going to talk about this monthly. We're going to figure out a cadence of let's circle back and find out, okay, we sent you 10 leads. only one of them was sales qualified, why weren't
So
the other
important.
9 not?
Yeah.
You know? And so it's critical to establish that from the get-go.
100%. And even when you ask those kinds of questions, you get good answers, right?
Right.
Like, why not? And then sometimes you find that just weren't ready to buy yet. And you need to keep them warm, like that example you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
right? They said no.
Mhm.
That doesn't always mean they're not ready to buy. That means they're not ready to buy today, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be ready to buy in 9 months or 6
Right.
months or whatever. And then sometimes it's because you find out that really is a bad market. You identified
Mhm.
that market and as something that was going to be good, and then you get in there and you're like, they're too price sensitive.
Right.
That we're not getting to the right people. They're such a strong competitor in there. We just can't compete with them on price, whatever it is. And you go, you know what? Let's don't talk to those kind of people anymore.
Right.
We go in and we lose every time. It's not a good market.
Yeah.
But you won't get that from a marketing perspective if you don't really go in there and talk to salespeople and get your heads talking together. Just like you said, and the earlier you do it, the better off.
Right. And we built a solution specifically for this. And you introduce it in the book, and it's called Growth Ops.
Yeah.
How is that different from what most companies are already doing? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Companies now are so siloed. It's like that when I was describing earlier where, we sat in one office and the salespeople were scattered about the world, selling stuff all over the world. And, we are sitting in the ivory tower making our precious brochures and things like that nobody else ever read. And that's the way a lot of companies still operate. And so the next evolution of that was RevOps. And so you saw this happen a lot in SaaS, software as a service industries, where they had the sales team and the marketing team and the customer support team were all kind of working together, working from the same scorecard, and trying to make sure that everything was going. That really advanced things a lot and broke down a lot of the silos. Well, Growth Ops is one step beyond that and goes a little deeper. So it goes all the way, covers everything from product and also includes pricing in there. And so you get a much wider area for people to talk and coordinate and to build their processes around, so that you get a lot better results and you got people more aligned, more clear on what the goals are, all singing from one single source of truth.
Yeah, and I think that's great because I've been a part of building RevOps functions in the past, and I think Growth Ops really takes it to the next level and, gives technical leaders a framework that they already understand, systems thinking, feedback loops, apply it to the revenue engine, and that's why it lands differently than just pure RevOps.
Yeah.
What does a growth ops approach change in the way commercial teams and sales teams engage in the market kind of on the day-to-day? We talked a little bit about the broad strokes, but...
Yeah, well, if you go back to my story about Tom and Maria, Tom was definitely not operating in a growth ops environment. No. And, it's kind of like Groundhog Day. If you're just doing, if you're in a conventional approach where the sales team are out doing what they do and the marketing team are doing what they do, and they're just kind of doing the same motions day in, day out. Where it's if you go into a growth ops situation, everybody kind of knows where they're going. They know the accounts they're going to try to do. They know a lot about those accounts. They know a lot about the people in those accounts. And it's a lot more sense of purpose. And they're measuring how those things are going. They're really following those accounts and trying to make sure that they can be there when that window of opportunity opens up that they've been looking for. And people start engaging with their content. Now, when people start engaging with that content, the salespeople know, look, they had 6 touches of our stuff. They've been coming to this website for a month. They read the case study. They watched our video. They attended one of our webinars. I need to reach out to them now. And maybe they're still not ready to buy, but man, think about that versus, Tom, who's just going to call from, starting at A and go down the phone book, right? Or go down the Rolodex. Just such a better and more tailored approach where everything's just more efficient. You get better results. It's a
whole different conversation.
Completely.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tom and Maria, Tom probably doesn't know who their ICP is,
No.
right? the ideal customer profile. And it's funny, I can't tell you how many times we've asked people and we get, two different answers, like Richard was saying a minute ago, from sales and marketing on who the ICP is. And if we can't agree on that, then we can't agree on the who and how we're going to sell it, right?
Yeah.
So, what does a real ICP look like that companies, can't agree on?
That's a big question, and it is something we see like you said, all the time. People come in and we'll ask people, what's your ICP? It's one of the first questions we talk to. Shannon knows this is one of my isms, but I always say that marketing is easy, but it's simple, but it's not always easy. I'll say it again. Marketing is simple, but it's not always easy, and it's really, who are we talking to? What keeps them up at night? And how do we solve that problem better than anyone else in the world? Once you know answers to all those questions, you can really make a lot of headway. And that first one of, who are we talking to is harder than you think. And most people think they have it figured out. They're like, but when we ask them that, they always give us very big, broad, vague answers. We're talking to independent oil and gas companies operating in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, the problem with that is I can't get in an elevator with somebody and go, hey, are you an independent operator operating in the Gulf of Mexico? I can't recognize that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I can't do it, your salespeople can't either. And that's a really important thing. You've got to get very specific, and you got to break down that whole buying committee like we described earlier. So not only the companies, the industries, and then the companies within that industry, and then the people within that account that might actually buy something from you. Now, no one we've talked to that we walk in and they know the answers to all those questions.
Yeah.
And it's critical to understand that.
When people say, it's anyone in any industry, that's, a total addressable market. That's not an ICP, right? And so when we actually do the work to narrow it down, and we do this with all of our Ascend engagements, which, people will learn about at the end of the book, the sales team's energy and win rate both go up. And so we love to use the term force multiplier.
Yeah.
And so that's really what this becomes.
Yeah. And I think the stat that I point to in the book is that where teams where their sales and marketing are aligned see a 210% increase over people who don't, or before they were integrated. Yeah. They see that kind of bump. And it's because of that. It was what we've been talking about. Just they're working together. They understand what they are all speaking the same language. They're very laser focused on doing the right things right instead of just trying to do a little bit of everything. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah. One of the things that is a recurring theme throughout the book, and you'll see my questions kind of veer along the avenue of sales, right?
Sure.
is moving away from disconnected sales activity toward a coordinated commercial engagement. And you describe it as the pincher method.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what that actually looks like in practice?
Sure. Yeah. It's integrated account-based marketing and account-based selling coming together. Yeah. And the pincher method is just what you would think about. It's like the pincher of the crawfish pincher. Coming together and to one single point. And it has its roots in the military, where you would flank the enemy, and so you have one set of group coming around this way and one group coming around the other side, so that the enemy doesn't have anywhere to go. Yeah. But in a sales and marketing position, or in terms of sales and marketing, what we're really looking for is marketing coming in on one side and sales coming in the other, and you meet in the middle. Yeah. And it's really, that is where you get your efficiency, with marketing providing that air support and the salespeople boots on the ground coming in a lot more informed. They're coming into a group of people who have heard about you, who understand what your differentiation is, understand the value propositions you bring. They've read some of your literature. Maybe they've attended an event. And now it's a lot easier sell for the salespeople to come and root them out. Yeah. And they know exactly who to talk to in that organization. They probably know who their detractors are going to be straight away, and they can prepare for that. They have a whole arsenal of tools that they can go and use to sell and hand off the ROI calculator to the CFO and the safety record to the safety person and the why justify why they're more expensive than the next guy to procurement and why their boss is going to love the whole thing so they can bring them in too. So that's the difference. And that's how the pincher method works.
It makes a huge difference, I think, from just doing random calls and trying to figure out who to talk to have that arsenal and be able to pull from that and use the marketing for air cover. What changes operationally when sales is no longer working independently but as part of a coordinated commercial strategy?
Well, you get that efficiency gain that we were talking about earlier. It's really important that instead of just kind of running around trying to sell something to somebody, that you see a lot of times when the boss says, hey, go sell harder, being able to really go laser focus on the accounts that you're trying to achieve, and how you're advancing each one of those sales and where they are in their buying process, and you can put the energy where you want it, where you need to put it at the most urgent times instead of, randomly and just hoping that, get lucky. So that's the biggest difference. And I think one of the things that we found is that the people who follow that approach are 2 to 4 times higher win rates than people who don't.
You talked a little bit earlier about pricing specifically. And, we talk a lot about, if you're competing on price, then you become commoditized.
Yeah.
And you don't, that puts you in a really bad category when you're going up against competitors to try to win a new deal. And I was actually surprised that you had a full chapter about pricing in here when I first saw the table of contents. But honestly, it makes a ton of sense. We see this a lot. Marketing isn't always involved in those conversations. So can you explain, I guess, for our audience why pricing belongs in a commercial operating model conversation specifically?
Yeah. The reason I put that in there, because it's really the biggest single lever that technical companies refuse to pull. It happens a lot, and it happens because of insecurity. A lot of times they think, oh my gosh, if we go up on our prices, all our customers will leave. And what we've found by spending a lot of time with our customers talking about pricing is that yes, some customers may leave because of pricing, but a lot of times those are the customers that you hated, and they weren't really helping you. And the difference you make up in pricing, a lot, from increasing your price, pays for those people to go away. And the people who value are going to value, and the people who you're kind of on the fence about whether you're driving value or not, they might leave, and that's something you have to be prepared for. But I think one of the things that, to me, what happens is a lot of times, remember we talked about the people who are probably going to read this book are very logical, and they go about determining their pricing in a very logical way. And they use the cost plus model, and they go, well, look, how much does it cost us to engineer this thing? What's it going to take to deliver it? How many hours is it going to take? Time and materials. What are our hard costs on this? Great. Let's do that. Let's take all the hard costs, and then we need to make a 20% margin, but let's leave a little bit of discounting in there for the salespeople. So let's go up to 30%, and that's our price. And they're not being nearly creative enough when they do that, because they're leaving a lot of money on the table in most cases. So if you're really in a very I think for some businesses, that's what you have to do. But for a lot of the clients that are really and truly innovative industries and are really bringing something new to the table, we always say if you're solving a $100 million problem for a client, you don't want to do that on time and materials.
Yeah.
That's really not what you want to do. You got to think about that $100 million problem and then share the value. So that's one of the things we recommend a lot is value-based pricing. And we're rethinking the pricing on things. And as you commercialize a new offering, maybe you can't really go up drastically on your old products and services. But maybe if you have a new product or service that adds a lot more value, you really owe it to yourself. You owe it to your investors to share the value that you're going to create with your customers. And so that's why I think it really helps to have marketing people come in and in your organization, or utilize your marketing people to do that voice of customer research and understand what do the customers really, really value. And every time we've done one of those a value study with our clients, our clients have always, there's a lot of stuff in there they're like, yeah, we knew that. There's always an aha moment where they go, oh my gosh, I did not know this. We just did it with a client, and they thought that what the customers were going to value was their unique process for manufacturing. And what we found was they really, everybody that we talked to said, some of them said, yeah, we really like that technology and their manufacturing's great. But what they really valued was the ability to understand their supply chain and manage their supply chain all the way through. And they saw tremendous value in that. And no one else in their industry was doing it. Wow. And they're doing it for free. They're doing that part for free because they're trying to sell the manufacturing. Well, look, this is something that you can probably, let's productize this because people like it. They see value in it. If these guys see value in it, maybe their neighbors are going to see value in it and other people in the industry. So all of a sudden we opened up a whole new offering that they were just giving away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. I think about, we've made deals over the years and people are like, yeah, I'll do it. And then you wonder, how much money did we just leave on the table right now? Oh man, we could have sold this for 3x what we, actually did. And I think, companies do this all the time. They can leave 40, 50, even 300% on the table because they're using that cost plus versus that value-based model. And it doesn't require changing the product. It requires changing how you understand and articulate the value to the person that you're selling it to. And if you truly understand what's valuable to them, and you use that in the sales process, then you can sell it for as much as you want.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's what we were talking about with product market fit earlier. So, you have the product, but they don't try to fit it to the market. But if you talk to the market and say, what do you really value? What is the thing that no one else is providing in this industry that you would really like? Well, that makes selling so much easier, doesn't it? If you could come in and say, here's what we do. No one else does it. Here's the amount of money that most of our customers are saving by doing this. Oh my gosh, what a better sales discussion than trying to ram something they don't want down their throat and try to convince them to buy something from you that they don't see any value in.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a lot of the times why we do voice of the customer research, because we don't always necessarily want to just hear it from the the client on what they think is valuable, but we want to hear from the actual customers or from people they even lost deals to. Why wasn't it valuable to them?
I really feel like those are always the most interesting discussions when you talk to the closed loss people, because the salespeople 100% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, say they lost on price. And then when we talk to the prospect, it's rarely price that what they want, why they didn't pick it. And almost always it's they didn't understand the value of what the salespeople were trying to convey during the sales process.
And that's always more so because salespeople aren't asking the right questions during the process. They're showing up and throwing up all those things, and you talk about that in the book too, but they're, just telling them about the service, but they're not asking the good enough questions to dig down to the root of what they will value, right?
Oh, 100%. We for our clients that are in the Ascend program, we record all the sales calls we can. And we go and we'll play back some of those calls, and we're like, this guy didn't ask one question on the call. And we noticed that the people who are the best performing salespeople ask the most questions, and they ask them early on. They're really trying to figure out if this is a good prospect. They're asking the right questions to understand if this person's ever going to really buy something from them or not. And they uncover a lot of value and uncover what that person's really trying to do. I think I roll back in my mind and all the deals that I've lost in my career, and when I didn't do it, I'm like, man, why didn't I ask that question?
It always comes back to the question that you didn't ask. I think.
I know. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night. When you're laying in bed, you're like, why didn't I ask that question?
I wanted to ask another question about pricing and value-based pricing. You talk a lot about value-based pricing and commercial positioning.
Sure.
Why do some technical companies struggle to defend premium pricing, even when they have a really differentiated product?
I think it goes back to lack of confidence. honestly. I think that they just don't feel that, they're afraid that they're going to lose the deal on it. And by the way, I suffer from that sometimes myself, right? Like, let's just win this one. We'll make it up later. And then you find out you're telling yourself that forever,
Yeah.
and you never make it back up. And then you set the price in the market. And then the people are like, well, why do you want to charge me more now? That's what the price was.
Yeah.
Why are you going up on it, on that price? It's way harder to raise your prices after you're in the market. But if you start off with a low price just to win the business, that's where you're gonna live.
And it's a good point. You have to think about it if you are truly differentiated and you're one of the first to market, you don't want to set the price too low, and then you're
That's the
competing with
worst.
yourself.
Yeah, you're competing with yourself, and you're never gonna get that price back.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Your final chapter in the book is called Making It Stick.
Oh.
Why do these commercial transformations so often fail, even when the strategy is right?
I'll tell you, if you think about, I love sports, so I always have a lot of sports analogies. And you think about what's the most, a lot of athletes are superstitious, but I think the most superstitious ones are baseball players. And I even get superstitious when I'm watching baseball. And I think that that's because that's a sport that requires a lot of muscle memory, a ton of muscle memory, right? To hit a curveball requires, a lot of muscle memory.
Right.
And I think sales is one of those positions that requires a lot of muscle memory. And I think salespeople rely on muscle memory more than any other profession that I've seen out there. And I think that as soon as a salesperson has a bad month or bad quarter, they say, forget this new process. Let's go back and do it the old-fashioned way. And they'll slip back into old habits very easily without someone to hold them accountable to the new process and without that willingness to change. One of the first questions we ask people when we go and to talk to them to see if they're even a good fit for Ascend is, what is your organization's willingness to change? How tolerant to change are you? And if they say not very, then we say this is not really the offering for you.
Yeah.
Because it's going to require a radical transformation. That's why it's called the Growth Ops Transformation Service. And because you're really transforming everything. You're changing the way that people work together. You're changing the way that the tools they use. You're changing the way they use the tools. And if you don't have some sort of change management in there, people they're not going to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's true. We went through this with a client a few years ago, and that change management piece was really important. And I honestly underestimated it. Within the organization, I think every organization is different, but the sales leader that I was working with, he knew, what it was going to be like, because he knew his team way better than I did. Right. And so he told me that curve to really get to that point. He's like, it's going to take 6 months longer than you think it will, just because change is really big in an organization, especially when you're working with people who have been there for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and you've been doing the same thing for a long time. Getting those people to change is really hard. I mean, imagine, being at home and, you and your wife had the same meal every Wednesday night for 10 years. And then one Wednesday, that meal was different. I think you would be shocked, right? That would feel very different to you.
Unless especially if they took away the tacos.
That's a Tuesday, though.
Yeah, they've got to be tacos.
I don't know. We eat tacos maybe 4 times a week in my house.
No, you nailed it. I think it is so difficult to get people to change. I think especially people that have been very successful, they're like, why would I want to change?
Right.
And I'm not going to change what I'm doing if it's working. And the tricky part is you can always get better. And I think when you're working together as a team and you're rowing in the same direction, you see such incredible change. You've seen it on your accounts that you've been working with customers on this end on. Yeah. And it's very difficult to convince people to do that. People love their tools. People love the way they work. People have settled into routines. And not all that stuff has to change, but a certain percentage of it has to change. And just nobody likes changing the workplace until they see the results. Right. But you have to stick with it because you've seen this before. Customers that have a 18-month sales cycle, and then all of a sudden they're like, "We tried it for a month and it didn't work." It's like, no, that's not the way that works, guys. Give it a minute. Let's keep pushing forward. Let's go. And here's the process. Here's the way we're going to follow it. This is our definition of these things. Here's our scorecard. We're all holding each other accountable to the scorecard. Believe in the process.
I was just talking about that the other day. We have a client in town last week, and we're 3 years into our engagement with them. And, it probably took almost a year to really start seeing the fruits of the foundational labor that we built together,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you're going to do it right, it is going to take some time to build. But once you build it, you really do see that. And we have seen tremendous growth with them over the last 3 years by making sure that we built that foundation right the first time.
Yeah, and that's why I call it a commercial engine. You get the engine and you got to warm it up a little bit. It takes maybe a few minutes to get it cranked up, and then it's got to run for a little while. But then once it's up and running and performant, it just kind of runs itself. It's really powerful.
Okay, so we've been hinting at it the whole time. And yeah, exactly. But Ascend Growth Ops is, the name of this offering that you talk about, and the thing that you've been kind of leading up to within the book. For someone listening right now who can relate to what we've been talking about and the challenges within different organizations and businesses, what is Ascend and what does it actually do? How can it make a difference for an organization?
Sure. Yeah. So we call Ascend the Growth Ops Transformation Service. And I think that really describes what it is, because it's not a marketing project, not a marketing campaign. It's not sales training. It's a lot more than that. It's where we really come in and help assess and rebuild your growth engine for your company. And it helps us to come in and take a strategic look at how you've been doing things and really dig deep and try to understand how we can make that your sales teams and your marketing teams work better. What does your technology stack look like if we're going to integrate this into it? What's your willingness to change? And then build a plan that's going to help you, really scale your business.
How do you know when you're talking to someone if Ascend is right for them?
So first off, we do have our target audience, ICP, for this. and it's companies that are in that $10 to $200 million range, both mid-market companies and lower enterprise type companies that really are going to see the most value from this. It's going to be technical companies, like we talked about, that have long, complex B2B sales with lots of internal stakeholders and buyers. And companies that have reached this little plateau where they were growing, things were going okay, and then they hit this plateau and they want to get to that next level. Ascend is going to be the way that they can do that systematically.
A lot of organizations already have sales teams. They already have agency working with them or marketing resources in place. And what's typically missing that causes commercialization efforts to feel fragmented? And why would a company still consider Ascend and BlueByrd?
Well, and it's less likely that it's a product problem or a people problem. It's probably a structure problem.
Yeah.
And they don't have the structure in place to do a growth ops type of implementation. So you still got your marketing people doing marketing stuff. You still have your salespeople doing whatever salespeople do all day, play golf,
whatever we do.
And without having that approach and that consistent architecture to lean on to build something, you won't do it. So you have marketing people doing campaigns that maybe they perform, maybe they don't. It's one of the things that's always frustrating when we're talking to CEOs. They say, marketing doesn't work, and or we tried this thing and it didn't work. Well, just because you tried that one thing one time doesn't mean that you did it right. Doesn't mean that the message was right. It didn't mean you had the right channels, all these things. And so this helps us get our arms around that and align all that activity that everybody's doing to the goals of the organization. So they're following the right processes, they're using the right tools, they have the same scoreboard they're operating off of, and it really brings everything together.
Yeah.
So you can have the marketing marketing team or agency that's creating creative. It lives within this system.
Yeah.
You can have salespeople that are running sales plays, but that lives within the system.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense, and I've definitely seen that, and I think it's really important from everything we've seen kind of across our client base that the companies that get the most out of Ascend are the ones where the CEO or other leaders are really invested and committed to that change, not just sponsoring it, but actually driving it. We've been fortunate enough to have really great clients who are understand the value and the impact that Ascend can make on their organization. And the book's final chapter says it plainly. It says leader commitment is the single biggest factor in whether a transformation actually sticks. And that's true in Ascend engagements too, wouldn't you say?
No, I agree. And I think the companies that I have the best conversations with are either a CEO or a senior leader is personally frustrated. Like they're not just curious. They have tried this before. They maybe hired a marketing coordinator or they've run some campaigns and it didn't do anything to move the needle, right?
Yeah.
So, the frustration is actually a good sign that we can help them. It means they're ready to approach it differently.
Yeah.
And, they're not just exploring because the companies that are just kind of looking or exploring, they don't really tend to move.
Well, yeah.
And change.
It's interesting because a lot of times when we talk to the CEO, they've tried a lot of things before they talk to us, right? They fired the marketing people. Well, first they fire the agency, and then they fire the marketing people, and then they fire the head of sales. Yeah. They bring on the next best salesperson and make that person the leader, and then they remove their best salesperson from the field, and they have a really frustrated sales manager that didn't get to do what they love, and now he has to manage a bunch of salespeople, and that cycle just loops.
Yeah.
And so by the time you go through that cycle one time, you're pretty frustrated.
Right.
And I think that motivation is what's going to really help change, because at the end of the day, if the leader of the organization's not committed to that change and to holding people accountable to that change, I would say don't do it. Yeah. Ascend is not for you if you're not willing to make that commitment to change your organization. Now, there's a process for it. We're going to make it as painless as possible, but you have to stand behind it, and you have to say, look, this is not the flavor of the day. This is not a new thing that's going to go away in 6 months, because salespeople are great at waiting out change.
Yeah.
You say, this is the way it is now, guys, and this is the way we're doing it, and I stand behind it, and I'm gonna make sure it's successful, and the people who can do that are going to see big results.
Yeah. Speaking of process, and it is a process, when a company decides to engage with Ascend, what actually happens first? Like, what's the first week? What does week one look like?
Sure. Well, we start with a diagnostic because we're not going to prescribe any medication without doing the diagnostics first. So we're going to go in there and we're going to look at all your processes. We're going to look at what your marketing process is. What plays do you have in there? What is your messaging? How are you going to market? What are these? Where are you seeing the most success? What's your sales process look like? What plays do you expect your salespeople to follow? How much coaching have they had? Do you follow a certain methodology in this organization? What do your customers think about all this? We want to talk to them. What does your technology look like? Are you able to get the information? That's the thing. Shannon mentioned it earlier. Our CEOs always want to know what the return on their investment is going to be for this. Well, with most marketing tech stacks that we see when we go out there, no one will ever know. It's going to be the biggest mystery in the world. So are we going to be able to deliver that, all those things that they're going to show what a return on investment looks like? Mm-hmm. And it's really, we want to get ground truth on all those things so we can then go in and make strong recommendations on how to achieve that. What do we need to set up? How much is this going to cost? What kind of technology do we need to bring to bear on this? How can we bring AI into it so now it can help everyone be a lot more efficient in the process?
Because I think sometimes when you bring AI into it, it can lead to inefficiency first and then to efficiency. So.
Yeah, 100%.
There's always, that learning phase in there. And speaking of learning at BlueByrd, we always talk about how we are lifelong learners. And, I think that's what makes us, great consultants is we're so curious
Yeah.
and we love to learn and we love to understand, different businesses, different models, industries and organizations. And so, you've been doing this work for 30 years, Richard. What did this book teach you that you don't already know?
Well, it's interesting. Somebody told me you don't really know a subject well until you can teach it to somebody else. And, this stuff is just kind of rattling around in my little brain for all these years. And I've learned a lot over the years, but I never really sat down to put it all together in one spot. And when I was able to do that, I thought, the book was going to be just about the 7 deadly sins and how to avoid them. Then when I started thinking about the two major headwinds out there that companies face, and I really kind of put the full picture together, and I realized why marketing can be so elusive and so difficult and unpredictable. And I thought, it doesn't have to be that way. We know a lot of the unknowns, and we know what are the major driving forces driving the macroeconomics of marketing and sales and all of the industries we're in. We know that, there's certain total addressable market, and there's a certain percentage of that you really want to go after. Tam, Sam, and Sam, and all that stuff. And
what language are you speaking?
all marketers know about that stuff. But how do you take that and take a programmatic approach to just fixing those mistakes, those 7 deadly sins that people make, and overcoming all those major headwinds to really make something productive and sustainable? And that, until I really started putting it all together, that's why I restarted the book a couple of times, because I was like, what, this is bigger than that. And that's really that's one of the things that I really learned from it, is that there's a system that can be put into place that can account for a lot of those unknowns. And you build that system, and then next thing, and get everyone aligned to it and everybody rowing in the same direction, and you see a lot of results. And, Shannon, the client we've mentioned a little bit earlier, we've done all this stuff for them that we put together in this system, but we didn't come in and say, like, here's all the stuff you need to do to be successful. We kind of figured it out as we went.
Yeah.
And after all these, the learning and trial and error and all those things, we decided, we've kind of figured it out, and this is a really good thing. And now, if we had a time machine, we would go back, we would do it this way.
Yeah.
And we would start with this, and we would say, look, a lot of people are gonna complain about this, and we need to have change management in place so that it really sticks. And as soon as people really get committed to it is when you start seeing the results. And, we're going to push back more on your ICP because I don't think that's specific enough, or that's too wide. You don't have enough salespeople to go and do that. Or, or when the salespeople push back on things like, no, that's my account. It's like, that's not your account. That's way too big of an account for one person. Yeah. You're not talking to everybody in that account. No. So that's, this segment of that company, that's your account. Now we're going after the rest of that account. And we didn't, at that time, we just were like, okay, we'll take their word for it. No, not anymore, right? Yeah. And I think we have the knowledge to push back on kind of those things, and in a process to kind of work through solving those issues, right? And go, wow, we were really confused for a year about what a sales opportunity was, right? And so it's like, well, now everybody knows what that is and have agreed to it. And if we could go back and do it again, this is the way we would do it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think I speak for kind of every future reader when I say thank you for sharing everything that you've learned over the last 30 years and, your stories. And I think a lot of technical readers are going to really be able to relate to that. But just one last big question for you is, what's one thing you want every technical leader who reads this book to believe that they don't believe today?
The one thing I would want a technical leader to take away is that you don't have to turn into a salesperson or a marketing person to be great commercially. You just have to put that same rigor you put into your business, into your engineering processes, into the commercial side of your business, and you'll see great results if you do that.
That's awesome. And I think we want them to believe that the gap between where they are and where they could be is smaller than they think. The knowledge exists, the framework exists, The tools exist today. The only thing standing between a technically excellent company and a market dominant one is the decision to close that commercial gap.
Right.
And, that's how we're here to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is something I'm really excited about, is that I think sometimes people get in that loop of like, oh man, I don't know. I've gone through and I've told the salespeople to sell harder, and we changed our marketing director and we tried to find a new agency, and we ran that LinkedIn campaign. We sponsored that golf tournament, and the money just didn't come raining in, and I think that once they realize that, you can get, once a technical leader realizes that there's systems and processes you can put in place to take advantage of the market and to go and beat your competitors on a consistent basis, I think that brings a lot of hope for them.
Yeah, and I was meeting with my executive coach today, and he said, a lot of companies just put things off for such a long time, and they sit and they look at it and they see that there's a problem there, and they keep looking at it until they want to deal with it, and deal with it today, because I don't think they realize kind of what those rewards will actually be in the end if they actually invest in alignment and growth within the organization the right way the first time. So I think a lot of people try to do it and they end up having to reinvest in it later on.
Well, and I think that's why we really want to take this holistic approach to it, because we've done it the way where it's like you fix it incrementally, and let's start with all the stuff that's broken, and we'll fix the most broken piece first and work our way up the tree. And it just takes a lot longer to do it that way. And the investment is a lot larger when you do it that way. And the people that are sitting on the fence, and they know that the way they're going to market and their commercial approach is not right. The thing I would say is, every day that you don't fix it, this is something that's really costing you money.
Yeah.
This is the lever you pull to pump more revenue into your organization. And if you don't, the sooner you pull that lever, the better off you're going to be, because you're going to get on track for that growth. And it doesn't happen overnight, like you said, Shannon. It takes a while to get that engine up and running and moving. But it's that old adage of, when's the best time to plant a tree? 25 years ago. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. But the second best time is today.
Right.
And, it really, the challenge I would have to leaders that know that the way they're going to market is broken, is how long are you going to let it hurt your company? How long are you going to slow your growth? How long are you going to slow your scale? How long are you going to let new competitors come in, chip away at you, and take what's rightfully the revenue that should be coming to your organization?
Yeah,
I like that.
me too. Well, enough small talk. Tell people where they can buy your book and how they can find you if they want to learn more about this.
There we go.
Ascend.
I'm going to sell. Now comes the sales presentation. No, it's on Amazon, so you can buy it at Amazon. It has a Kindle version, a paperback version, a hardback version's coming soon. I might be able to be talked into an audio version.
You will be.
And
I've already asked.
Everybody's been on me about that, and I only consume books through audio, so I should probably take my own medicine.
There you go.
But yeah, you can buy it on Amazon, and you can find out more about the book. Just go and Google The Best Kept Secret, Richard Byrd, and Amazon, it'll show up. Or you can just reach out to me or Cindi or Shannon and let us know if you have any questions or like to learn more about Ascend. But I highly recommend the book. And even if you don't use Ascend afterwards, I think that companies will see themselves in that book, and they will be able to take some steps to improve their commercial processes.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun.
Yeah,
Thanks for
it
having
has.
us today.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
Thanks for coming, and thanks for asking the hardball questions. And I'll let you have the silent mines a little more, Shannon.
Thanks. I actually enjoy things like this. I do it for my customers a lot. It's nice to be able
It's
to
nice to
sit
be on
here
the
and
other end of the
exactly,
mic, right?
Exactly.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing, sharing, or spreading the news about us on your favorite channel. Thank you for tuning into Above the Clouds, Stories from the Boardroom. Until next time, stay above the clouds.